wondering how I got into this mix.
How's everybody doing? Amazing. Give it up one more time for Coletta and her amazing show. And for everybody else who's contributed for the yoga. Who was here for the yoga earlier? Give it up to Vanessa, the yoga was awesome. And well, to each of you for being here, especially those of you who aren't already a part of the tour, who are here. I'm not sure what you're about to hear from me because I've been changing up my talk, and it's probably going to be a lot shorter than what I usually do because this tour has been very interesting and healing, and I'm very thankful to Jofi for reaching out to me and to Sasha for as well, and just everybody who's done their part to make this experience something. You know, it's really it's an experiment, and can we bring people together? Can we travel around and bring together movement and dance and yoga and different ideas? And it's important to do that. All of the great projects that I've been involved with the last 8 years that I've been dedicating myself to full-time activism and journalism and trying to change the world, the best projects have been the result of collaboration, synergy, working together with people, not just focusing on what am I doing, how can I only help myself, you know, and it's always beautiful to see people come together. So before I get into all that, I want to howl with you guys because it's helpful for me to relax a little bit, and you know, as you guys just experienced, breath work is important, and howling is another thing that has been important to me in my personal journey. I got like a bunch of stories I could tell you about wolves and howling and how many synchronicities led me to meeting wolves and volunteering at a wolf sanctuary and tattooing wolves on my body. But the point is that I've been connected to wolves for about 8 years now, and whenever I get a very good, joyous feeling, or maybe even sometimes a sad feeling, howling is a good way for me to express myself, and it feels good to release, you know, just like yogic breathing, all that. So if you guys want to, let's take a deep breath, and when we release, let out a howl, like, you know, channel your inner wolf, all right? Tell me you don't feel better now. So, my name is Derrick Broze. I'm from Houston, Texas, the United States, and this is my first time in Spain and my first time in Portugal, really the first time in Europe, so this has been great. For the last 8 years, from 2010 to this point, I've been involved with an activist community that I started called the Houston Freethinkers. I live in a very big city, so there's a lot of opportunity to connect with people. There's also a lot of people who are totally distracted and just, you know, the usual city stuff, all that kind of thing. But I've been involved in organizing. Before getting into activism and journalism and the things I'm about to share with you guys, I was a music promoter, so I worked with a lot of bands and artists, and I would organize music events. And I did that for years, and then I kind of got sick of that and decided I wanted to do something else that felt like it mattered more. So I started organizing benefit shows. I started working with musicians and finding out which ones actually cared about the world and wanted to contribute their time and their music to raising money for, I think the first show I ever did that was a benefit show was it's called Victims of Violence, and it was during Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the US, and so we raised, I think, a couple $1,000s for this women's shelter that was specifically for women who are getting out of domestic abuse situations, like a transition home kind of. So that was my first step into activism, and really like, wow, people, this was great. I get to work with artists that I care about and musicians and do something that feels bigger than just myself. So that was really an important step in this direction. And then over time, it became combining activism and music and all these beautiful things. And up until about a week ago, I was living in a community space in Houston called the Freethinker House, and it's me and 2 other guys. We had 3 different versions of this over the years. But basically, we live in a big house, and we all agree to split the bills and to use this space as a community space. So we put on benefit shows at our house. We'll work with local musicians, local artists, and say, hey, host an event at our house. We'll, charge people $5 to get in. All the money goes towards whatever charity or cause we're focused on that month. We'll host documentary screenings. We'll host different meetups. We've had like feminist groups, we've had vegan groups, just anybody who wants to reach out and needs a space, they can use our spot. We also have a big community garden that we grow a lot of our own food, and would have like garden days where anybody who wants to come learn can get involved. And we've done over the years like protesting. I've started a bunch of other activist groups from this main group. We would find, hey, there's a lot of interest in people focusing on police accountability. Let's start a group that can focus on that. So we started Peaceful Streets Project Houston. There was a lot of people concerned about like cleaning the water and getting like fluoride and things out of the water. So we started a group to focus on that. And so this main group, the Houston Freethinkers, was kind of like a hub for bringing people together, and then through that connecting people to different projects and working on a lot of beautiful things. And it's allowed us to raise thousands of dollars for different causes, to work with lots of activists around the country and around the world. I started in 2011, I started getting out of the city and going to like New York and visiting other places and connecting with other activists. And obviously social media has played a big role in connecting all of us. I mean, 10 years ago, these kind of things would not have been possible. Like Jofi and I, we would have never met each other. Like, we've been getting to know each other as we travel. Like, well, how did you even hear about my work? How did you hear about my work? And it's just such a beautiful synchronicity that all these things that bring us together. So I've been doing that and just working on, you know, I've also been arrested back in the day for like civil disobedience. That's where a lot of my activism started. I think when you first wake up to different things, maybe in the beginning you're kind of upset. You got that angry, like, wow, there's all this injustice going on in the world. I want to do something. So it feels good to go out on the streets and maybe march or hold a sign or, you know, go confront cops. In the US, we have a huge police abuse problem. I'm sure you guys have seen videos out there. So that was a big thing. And, you know, we would do like, it was also, we were around before the Occupy movement started. So whenever that happened, the Houston Freethinkers and Occupy Houston, we worked together a lot, did a lot of like, marches and sitting in buildings and blocking buildings and all that kind of stuff. And so after accumulating a certain amount of arrests, I was like, maybe there's a different way to go about this, because these people are still doing what they're doing. You know, it feels good to express yourself, but ultimately it doesn't get to the goal. And I'm very solution oriented. I don't want to just take actions because it makes me feel good. Like, hey, I'm going to go scream and wave, and you know, that made me feel good inside, but the problem that I'm looking at is still existing. So over the years, my work has evolved more, and I also realized that I like to write. I love to write, I love to speak. Art, my art is my word. And so I started to do a whole lot of blogging, and I was blessed enough that over time people started offering me paid gigs. And so now I pay my bills by writing. I write for several different independent media websites based in the US and abroad. And that's how I pay my bills, and I'm able to travel. I've written 4 books now that focus on some of these topics, specifically more on the philosophical side, the intersection of spirituality, a lot of the things that you've been hearing about today, how to bring that awareness and combine that with also the awareness that there are problems in the world. Because in my experience, as I started to get involved with activism, I would go to my meditation circles and some of the events like this, and I would have a great time. It would fulfill me spiritually. But it didn't stop the police violence, it didn't stop the economic theft, it didn't stop the destruction of the environment, it didn't stop the destruction of, you know, indigenous communities. And I would try to talk to some of my spiritual friends and say, have you guys seen what's going on? Have you seen this? And they would say, don't talk about it. You're going to manifest it. Don't talk about the negative things. You know, you're going to create them into a reality. And so they would kind of, what I say, put their head in the ground and just turn a blind eye and act as if meditation alone will fix those things, which meditation has played a very healing role in my life. But we cannot, you know, we live in a dualistic world for the moment, and we can't go. I think I would say from my experience, it's a danger to focus on only one side. And the flip side of that is I would go to my activist friends, I would be at protests, I would be at rallies, and I would try to say, hey, would you want to come to this meditation with me? Or hey, have you guys ever thought that like you're the manifestation of God? Like, I'm God, you're God. I'd say some spiritual trippy thing, and they'd like, are you high? What's wrong with it? You know, or they had no interest in that sort of stuff. They were just like, let's just talk about the government or politics or the corporations and this. So each side was missing something from what I felt. And so for a couple of years, I was like, okay, I'll accept that. I'll go hang out with my activist friends and we'll do that. And then I'll hang out with my spiritual friends and we'll do that. And then in 2013, I had sort of another kind of breakthrough. And I realized that these were two sides of the same coin and the same message, and that I couldn't separate these sides of myself anymore. And this phrase, the conscious resistance, came to me, and that's the name of my website and my book trilogy, and I guess you could say the movement that I've tried to push, which brings together this search. And so if I was to define what does the conscious resistance mean, it's the realization, the recognition, the awareness that the struggle for a more free, ethical, and just world is not only in the sense of confronting political and corporate power in the physical realm, but it's also the struggle against our own internal tyrant, against our own doubts, fears, and insecurities. And the two of those things work hand in hand. It's not about separating those things. And I ultimately believe no matter what solutions we dream up in the political realm, no matter how many candidates we throw out there that we think are going to be the next best president or prime minister or mayor or whatever you have, until we have that spiritual healing, it's not going to happen. And I also think if we only focus on the spiritual healing, then we're not going to fix this realm. So to me, it's like we have to have the balance of both. Like, we can come up with the best solutions on, you know, social democracy or even anarchism and some of the ideas that I believe in, but they won't work until we work on ourselves as well. So I believe the message has to work together. You know, it can't just be one or the other. And the reason I believe in that is because I've had to go through a lot of healing, and I'm still doing a lot of healing. I think, you know, it's a continuous process. We all are. And this tour, Jofi, I mean, I can't tell you thank you enough, because it's just been, like I was telling them the other day, like, I thought I was coming here to sell some of my books and sell some of my shirts and to give talks. And some of the events haven't necessarily gone as we planned, but instead this has just been a very big healing thing. I mean, I'm leaving early in the morning, so this is kind of like, I love you guys, sort of goodbye to everybody on the tour, because each of you, I feel like we've connected in some individual way, whether it's just like a really just heartfelt hug or sharing like our life stories. And so this trip was totally different than what I thought it was for. I knew it was going to be amazing, but it was different, and it was different in all the right ways. And so it's even changing the things that I want to share now. And I'm headed home in the morning for like less than 12 hours, and then I'm going to San Diego to give some more talks. And I'm already rethinking everything I want to say, because I feel like I've amassed this collection of ideas and philosophies that I put into books, and I put them into books because I think they're valuable. And I still think they're valuable. You can download them on my website and do all that if you want to. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I have a few ideas, and I have some things that I think could possibly help, but like, I don't know, this has really helped me understand that I have so much more to grow. And I didn't think that I had it all figured out before, but this trip has really helped me see that there's more healing to grow. And another thing this trip has helped me to see is, I'm going to share a little bit of my story, but I think I'm going to stop sharing it so much, because even though it helps heal people, it's keeping me stuck in the past. And you know, so I'm going to share a little bit of it with you, but I think maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. So the reason I focus on healing is because, again, I've spent so much of my life like focused on healing. I tried to kill myself 3 times before I was 15 years old. I spent most of my earliest years visiting my father in prison. Like 3 generations of men before me have, my grandfather hung himself, great-grandfather hung himself in prison. He abused and got my grandpa on drugs. My grandpa was hooked on drugs and had my dad when he was 14 years old, and by the time my dad was 8 years old, he was hooked on crack and like all kinds of things. He's 50-something years old now. He just got out of prison. He's been free for 2 years of my life. 2 years of my life. And not like 2 straight years. Like, if you add it all up, maybe 2 years of my life. So my earliest memories are going to visit him in prison. And as a little kid, trying to understand, like, why do I gotta go visit dad behind this razor wire place? Why is it such a short visit? Why does he got a black eye? Why is his arm broken? How come I only get to see him for this short amount of time? How come he says he's gonna come home and then he isn't there? How come he makes these promises and they never come true? And putting a lot of blame on myself. And so my earliest memories that I can recall are what we would probably consider to be suicidal thoughts. Like, I remember being 5, 6, 7 years old and not wanting to be alive. Like, thinking like, I did something. Like, maybe it's me. Maybe he doesn't want to come home because I'm the problem. And so I spent so much of my early life like really like wanting this relationship and craving this like father-son thing that I've never known, and craving real like authentic relationships. And the truth of it is, I can connect with you guys, each of you, and who are, until a day ago, complete strangers. I can be more real with you than I can with most people in my family. And I crave authenticity because most of my early years were completely devoid of that. And even now, like, my dad got out a couple years ago. I'll just share this briefly. He got out a couple years ago, and it was the first time I've ever seen him, my grandpa, me, and my older brother all in the same room. It was like, I kind of had to step back, like, holy crap, like, this is 4 generations of like Broze men, like all who've had drug problems and stuff. And here we are. And what did we do? They're like bullshitting, like, oh, so what are we eating for tonight? Like, there's no real connection. And so what happened? My dad didn't process any of his pain. My grandpa didn't process any of his pain. And within 2 months, he was back in prison. Because none of them are open to healing. I'm the only one that's kind of open like this. And so I spent most of my early years really trying to understand that. And by the time I turned 14, it was one of the latest times where I found out he was going back to prison, and I basically just became very angry. I was like, fuck it, you know what? I'm tired of being hurt. I'm just going to close myself off. And it's kind of like the dark side of the Force in Star Wars, right? You think this like anger makes you more strong. And sometimes anger can make you feel strong. You're like, yeah, just like fuck everybody. I'm going to look out for myself. But really you're just covering up the pain that you have underneath. And I did that. I just became super destructive from 14 until basically 21. I've had a few meditations where I saw my life in chapters of 7, and it makes a lot of sense. And so from 14 basically till 21, I was just, I've always been really intelligent and paying attention to the world and able to write and communicate, but nobody knew that from me. They knew me as the kid who was getting arrested at school, who was throwing chairs at teachers and just doing all kind of crazy shit because I was looking for attention, but also I was just like trying to process all these things and I had no idea how to. And then eventually like I discovered drugs and I was like, holy crap, these things make me feel amazing. I'm gonna put as many of these things in my body as I can and see what that does. Maybe that'll help me reach enlightenment. And of course I realized like that wasn't the answer either, but before I could pull myself out of it, I got myself hooked to crystal meth, and January 2005 was the first time I tried it. January 2005, by November 2005 I was in prison. So within 10 months I got evicted out of my apartment. Well, first I lost my job, and then some friends at the time decided to move in with me. So the next thing we're like selling drugs full time. I get evicted, living on the streets. I get taken under the wing by some older drug dealer, which was kind of like a weird, twisted father-son type thing. I was like, wow, this guy's looking out for me. He cares about me. He's like helping me make money. He's giving me drugs. Like, this is really cool. And you know, it just spiraled out until I'm basically living in like a crack meth house, like sleeping in the room under the stairs, and somebody gets shot right outside of our apartment, and I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, how, you know, it took a lot of different steps. And I do credit, you know, I'm not straight edge and completely sober now. I believe in the power of cannabis. It helped me get off of crystal meth. Honestly, my anxiety was so bad. Like, cannabis helped me like get away from that. And also psychedelics. I had some really powerful psychedelic trips that the medicine was showing me, you're going down the wrong way, you're going the wrong way. And I refused to listen. You know, now I can kind of look back and be like, whoa, they were telling me to look out, you know. There was like a road, you know, sign saying, crash ahead, crash ahead. But I had to go through it. So I ended up getting myself sober before I went to prison. But I kept dealing and selling and just surrounding myself with the same people. And it was just a matter of time. I got arrested in November 2005, and I went to prison. And in and out of prison from 2005 to 2008. I ended up doing a total of 18 months in Texas state prisons. 1 year, out for 5 months, 3 months, out for a year, 4 months, like just, so it was in and out and in and out. But each time I felt like I was getting a bit more of what I was seeking. When I first got locked up, it was like, I mean, even more to the fact, when I got locked up, he was getting out of prison. Like literally the week I got arrested, he was getting out. And I've spent most of my life so angry and mad at him, and I'm like, oh shit, here I am going to jail for the same shit. You know, I guess I turned into him, right? And I really had to see, I'm a very visual person, I tend to get visions, take that how you want, but I see the universe shows me images, shows me possibilities. You can have this if you do everything in your power, put your energy towards this. And I saw the path that my family's gone down, and I saw something different. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna see what I can do different than what my family has shown me. And I started to just reflect. I mean, journaling saved my life, just like writing my thoughts down every day. And even after being there for a while, like my handwriting started to get better. Like I started to slow down, and I started to meditate. I got my grandma to send me like books on Buddhism and send me like the Dhammapada, sometimes known as the Buddhist Bible. It's a collection of like verses from the Buddha. So my girlfriend at the time would send me like a chapter a day. She would print it out and send it to me in the mail. My grandma sent me some books, and I just started meditating while I was in prison and really getting into it, which is a really great environment for it. Now it's more common to hear about like meditation and yoga programs in prisons and stuff like that. It's definitely needed because it wasn't there when I was there. And there's a lot of fear in there. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of like, because what I consider is like low level, that like root primal type of thinking. Like, you look the same color as me, so we're gonna hang out. Like, you're the same, you speak the same language, so there's all these gangs, there's all this weird shit in this. What's that?
No, that happens.
Yeah, I mean,
out of prison.
Even in the real world, but even more in there, because we're like in this. You're afraid of like, where am I going to get out? And there's a lot of hurt people in there. And what do hurt people do? They hurt other people, right? So it was the perfect environment for me to discover meditation. Honestly, it was like being surrounded by people, going to bed, sitting in my bunk, like meditating and hearing the whispers. Like, what the fuck is that crazy guy doing? Just whatever, hearing them and just like, don't pay attention. Just you're here for yourself. Just focus, you know. So I really started to get into meditation and I focused on my healing. And I got out October 2008. I got out as a felon, I don't know if that's what you guys call it out here, but I had an X on my back, basically couldn't get a job anywhere, couldn't, had to deal with that now. Now I'm getting out with like all this whole new level of judgment of people like, oh wait, you have a felony, sorry. Like, they either don't want to talk to you, they definitely won't hire you, they maybe won't let you have an apartment there because they assume that because you have this mark on your record now, you must be a bad person, whatever judgments they want to make. So I got out and I had to experience that. And along with going to prison, like when I started to do this, focusing on not just meditation, but like really just reflecting, like spending time in my mind, like I really feel like some of the biggest growth experiences I have been the ones that I've been alone, like when I've chosen to be alone, because we're afraid to be alone sometimes. And even more so now in our digital age, you can be alone, but you're never really alone because you can distract yourself all day on the internet, right? So it's very easy to do that. And when you're in prison, I'm like, okay, I have to accept that no matter how much I cry, no matter how much my mom calls, like friends, girlfriend, nobody can do anything for me. I'm looking at the calendar, I'm like, I gotta accept, like, I'm here. So I can either just complain about it, I can cry, I can do whatever, or I can choose to get something out of it. And honestly, it's very easy to get worse when you go there because you meet all sorts of other criminals. And if you're going there to if you're not ready to change, you could definitely learn how to commit other crimes if you want. And then you start planning. And this is what I did, honestly, the first time. Like I was starting to heal, but I wasn't quite ready for it. So I connected with people I met in prison, and we got out and we started doing deals together. And that's why I went back after 5 months, because I wasn't ready to change yet. My point is, when I got out of all that, that's when I really started to do a lot of self-reflection. I couldn't get a job, so I'd go to the library every day trying to apply for jobs, and then I decided, like, hey, you know what, I want to start learning again, because that cloud had lifted, the cloud of depression was starting to lift, the cloud of like suicide, all this weight was lifting off me, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to learn about the world, and I was getting out as part of the drug war, which, to be straight up, like, I don't even think, like, I needed help, but I don't think people should be in prison because of drugs. Like in Portugal, you guys have decriminalization. I think that's the answer. Crystal meth or not, because at the end of the day, it wasn't the crystal meth that was like the problem. Obviously, it's a very destructive thing. I had issues that I needed help with, you know. I was just coping with that as a way to self-medicate and to deal with my issues. So at the end of the day, I think people should have access to all the drugs they want, anything they want. They just need help, and we need to have options to help people. The prison didn't help me. Like, the prison is a fucking cage that they throw you in, and they throw you in with a bunch of other people. You make the choice. Do you want to come out better? Do you want to do something different? Like, at the end of the day, it's up to each of us. And that's why I can speak to my 50-something-year-old dad as a grown adult and say, Dad, I know you've heard this from everybody in your whole life, but I want you to have something different. And I know it's not going to make a difference because it's up to him. Like, he has to decide when he's ready. And that sucks because we want to like grab people and like help them and like get this, but they have to experience and they have to go through that. So as I said, I've been focused a lot on healing, and when I got out, I started reading, I started learning about the world. Like YouTube was out, all the documentaries out, I started going down the rabbit holes and woke up, my mind got blown, and that's what led me to starting the activist group I mentioned and yada yada yada, all the things I do now. But it started with that. That's where it really started for me. Like, so the reason I always emphasize healing, because in my work, a lot of activists are only focused on like the politics of the government or this and that, and they're totally empty when it comes to like spiritual healing. They think, oh, all we need to do is just change the government. Oh, all we need to do is just get people to, you know, eat vegan or do these different things. These things that are important, but they're only part of the message. And so that's why I put a lot of emphasis on that. And as I was saying, this trip has kind of reminded me like how much more healing every one of you have played a role in that in so many different ways. It's just, I'm very humbled and thankful for that, because as I've been reflecting and thinking about this talk and thinking about, I'm going home to a big conference this weekend, like what am I going to share? Like people are going to be used to me sharing the message that I usually share, and I really feel like I should just get up there and say like, stop listening to me, go home and meditate, like fucking focus on yourself, stop paying attention to everybody on the stage and do your own work. And not because I don't think I have anything to share, but because I realize that like there's just so much more healing to do, you know, and it's an important reminder, because I do have a lot of practical ideas and good ideas that I would like to share with you. There's not really enough time today to share that can help you in your community, and I can throw out some websites and things and tools that I think will be valuable for you. But that's what it really comes back to. I mean, and I've been reflecting on this. Like in 2013, I put out a video called "For the Good of Everyone, Focus on Yourself," and I'm like, I've been saying that to myself for 5 years, but what am I doing? I'm putting my energy to coming out and speaking, putting all this energy outwards. And it's important work. Like if I hadn't done that, then Jovi would have never seen one of my videos, I would never end up here. So it has value, but at the end of the day, I feel like I need to pull myself back in, you know, and I'm about to go home and do a 56 city tour of the United States, so it's kind of a bad time to like, it's already set in stone, and honestly, if I could stop it and cancel it now, I would, and I would just spend the next 4 months at home focusing on myself. But for whatever reason, the universe has put me in this position, and I have more to share. I did a tour of the US last year, I'm doing another tour this year, and people are willing to come and listen. And our event's similar to this. We do meditation, we do music, and I do an hour-and-a-half talk, like deep workshop of these ideas. And it's led me to meet so many beautiful people from around the world, but I really feel like my place now is kind of going back, like getting away from the spotlight so much. And my work's out there, people can find it, it's gonna be there. It's, you know, there's a record of what I do, but I honestly feel like it's time for me to like pull my energy back in. You know, I think we're all sensitive to different energy, and I get drained a lot from these things, you know, because I put my time, my energy, and I'll give a talk, and there might be 20 or 30 people who want to come share something afterwards, and I make sure I can look each of them in the eye and hear what they have to say. And sometimes people are crying, they open up, they say these beautiful things, and I want to give them my energy and put my hand on their heart and tell them, like, you're amazing, you're so important, please continue doing what you're doing. But by the end of that, I'm drained. Like, I need to like go back to my space and recharge. And I feel like the path that I've been on has been to help. And I'm helping myself through that as well. But I really think that I need to go home, I need to focus on myself. And so if there are questions, if you guys are interested in the things that, the deeper ideas that I have, I think I'm pretty much at the end of my time anyways, but my work does focus on practical steps like that you can do to change your life. Because I believe that the answer is not to, when it comes to the physical realm, the answer is not to vote. The answer is not to violently overthrow these people. The answer is to build something new. The answer is not to ignore the problems. The answer is not to only meditate. The answer is not to constantly point our fingers outward, because it's very easy. And one thing I've seen, not just on the tour, but in spiritual communities and elsewhere, is sometimes people speak, they speak very confidently, as I do, because we believe in these things, but we speak as if the things we say are fact. And I don't think we know anything. In fact, the past 8 years, I feel like I've known less and less. The more I learn, the whole cliche phrase, the more I learn, the less I know. I mean, it's true. I feel like so humbled because I learn things, but then I look around the world and I'm honestly like, I mean, this could all be a simulation. This could be a complete mirage. And like, whatever it is, if we're in a bubble, if the Earth's flat or whatever, I just want to spend my time and dedicate as much of my energy on this planet to making it better. And I realize that the best I can do is to work on myself. And so I'm public about that. I'm very public about my struggles, and I'm vulnerable, because especially as men, we know that like we're taught to like cover up. We're not supposed to be weak. We're not supposed to cry, but every single one of us have shared tears on it. And it's been so awesome, man. So awesome to share those tears. And it's important to do that, to be vulnerable and to be real. And that's what I want to focus on, So I think that the answers aren't within the system. They're within our hearts, and they're also with us coming together as free, empowered people, recognizing the beauty. Because if you had come to me before when I was in my drug addiction and my depression, and you told me about all these different issues, I would have listened to you, and I would have said, like, wow, that's so great. They're doing that to the earth. They're doing what? Oh my God, that's happening. They're doing that to the animals. But I was literally just trying not to kill myself every day. I was trying to make it through another day. And I wouldn't have been able to help you. I would have been concerned, I would have felt it, but I would have been like, sorry, man, I'm just trying to get through here. So when I see that, I realize, and I go out in the world, and I see so many other hurt people, and it's not my job to fix them all, it's not our job to do that, but we can inspire, we can be there as support systems for each other. And so I recognize that until we start focusing on healing, even the best solutions out there aren't going to apply. Maybe we will implement all the ideas that I talk about. We opt out of the system, we start using alternative currency, we create decentralized local food production, we get out of these systems that don't represent the health and the wealth of our communities. But until we do that internal healing, it may take 50 to 100, 200 years, but we're going to turn into the same people. We're going to create the same problems. People talk about revolution, that implies revolving, going in circles. I don't want a revolution. I truly want to evolve as people. And these are sort of like airy-fairy, what do you call it, Joe? Huffy, fluffy, woo-woo things people say. It's kind of like a cliche, but the truth of the matter is it's very practical. Like literally, if you don't start aligning the things you believe with your actual actions, we are never going to achieve the goals. We're going to keep meeting, and it's great to meet people. It's nice to be paid to fly around the world and to get, give talks and this and that, but that's not what I got into this for. I never got into this life because I wanted to write books or because I wanted to fly to Portugal and Spain or whatever. I got it because I want to change the world. And it has to start with us, and it also really has to start with us thinking about our actions. So think about your diet. Think about the people that you hang out with, the ways you communicate with people. Look into nonviolent communication. That's one tool I will mention. It's totally changed the way that I communicate with myself, that personal self-talk, because I used to have such a negative talk here. I programmed myself for years. You're so stupid. You're so this, like over all day, over and over. And it's taken so much. Even every now and then I'll still have that voice pop back up, sort of insecurities, and I have to have a moment. It's like, you don't serve me anymore. Like, there's no point, and that's not where I'm at now. But the way we communicate with ourselves, the way we communicate with each other, these things are just as important as meditating every night. These are just as important of knowing the ins and outs of the political system. Because I know a lot of activists that they could recite to you front to back of political philosophy and very important things. I know a lot of people who can tell you all of the yoga asanas and all these different types of meditations, but then maybe the way they eat is inconsistent, or the way that they talk to their spouses, or they talk to themselves, or they talk to their mother or their friends. Those things matter just as much. And this is why I call my work holistic activism, because you think about every single thing. You're pointing your fingers out at the world and you see a problem, turn your finger back around and ask yourself, how am I contributing to these things? Am I actually removing myself from things that I don't support? Or am I just talking? Am I just putting on a costume and going to the festivals and going to the events and holding my crystals and doing these things? Those are all important, but are they really you, or are they just a facade that we put on? Because in the age of social media, it's very easy to put out a front. One of the concepts that we talk about in my latest book, it's called The Holistic Self-Assessment. There's this psychological concept that talks about each of us have a self that we put in front stage, and then one that we have behind the curtain, behind the stage. And behind the stage, we get to kind of get our hair right, especially with social media. We're getting ready, like, okay, I want to put this out there. And then we come and present ourselves to the world, right? Check me out as I'm doing this good deed, or this is how I want to be. And then maybe when you're alone, you're a different person. For me, the goal is to align those things as close as possible. And to do that, you got to know who you are. Spend some time alone. Spend some time getting to know who you are. Ask yourself, what are the principles that guide you? Look at your goals, look at your habits, look at your relationships, and look for inconsistencies. My books focus on this. If anybody's interested in this, they're available for free. I would love to share more. I have cards there if you want to keep in touch with me. If anybody wants a free shirt before I go home, let me know. That's what I got, guys. I'm really going to focus my energy on healing myself more. And as I said, I have some more things to share over these next few months, and put my energy. And I do plan to come do a European tour next year as well. And we're going to keep working together and collaborating. But I just, this has been a beautiful reminder that I got to bring myself back in and focus more on myself if I'm really going to stay in this for the long term. Because this isn't just a fad for me. This isn't just something I'm doing as a hobby. This is my life. This is the only thing I do is day and night think about how to improve the world and how to improve myself. And I think I've been putting so much energy outward, I haven't been focusing on how I can help myself. So I'm going to end with my positive affirmation. If you guys feel like joining with me, feel free to repeat and take this in like you have been taking everything in. Don't just repeat, hear the words. It's something that came to me and has really helped me. I'll tell you it first and we'll do it together. But I like to tell myself, I'm powerful, I'm beautiful, and I'm free. Because think about those things, that we each have power. It took me a while to recognize the power, in my words. I doubted myself for so long. And each of us, I don't care who you are and how many followers you got on the internet and how big you think you are, we each have doubts, fears, and insecurities. They look different to each of us. Some of the things that affect one of us might be you think it's silly, how could you're so amazing, how could you let that affect you? But each of us deal with things differently. So we have to recognize the power we have to see in ourselves. We have to see the beauty in ourselves and see that reflected in each of us. And at the end of the day, recognize that we're free. We're free to make the choices we want. We can decide which path we want to take. There may be institutions out there that want to limit us and hold us back and also destroy the planet we live in, but ultimately we're free to decide how we react to that and how we move. So if you feel inclined, please repeat after me. I am powerful.
I'm powerful.
I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
Say this one with me.
I am free.
I am free. Thank you, guys.
Bye.